I guess you got to be very careful. Some guys will lose a match to a Brazilian, and they'll blame they'll think that they lost because the Brazilians were corrupt or something like that. So it's a fine line between you wanting to take away your opponent's victory, you know what I mean, and make it excuses. But there definitely is a lot of friction. Like Keenan Cornelius has had some tough calls made against him, and a lot of the time people look back and say that it's because he's an American. And I guess the Brazilians run the IBJJF, the biggest tournament series in the world, and they hire predominantly Brazilian refs. And I think a lot of close calls do go towards the Brazilian competitors. And it's hard. You can't get in the mind of the ref and see if they are being corrupt or if that's really truly how they saw it. But that definitely is a big factor.
Can you explain IBJJF and how it's run and what you mean by that?
Oh, the IBJJF is it's just a company, one of the oldest companies for running tournaments in jiu-jitsu. I think they won the first Worlds in 1996, and they've been running tournaments ever since. They're sort of like the most widely recognized #1 gi tournament in the world. They get the biggest numbers in the world. They charge a lot of money to compete, and they charge you registrations to become a member to compete. They really, your coach has to be registered. He has to pay a lot of money to register his team just so that you can compete. I think your coach has to have 3 stripes now on his black belt, recognized by them. He has to be a member throughout that whole process for them to recognize him, or he has to go through a lot of paperwork to backtrack that. I guess it sort of makes sense in that they're sort of trying to make it legitimate black belts are running these teams. But again, you could see the opportunity for corruption there and to make a lot of money out of it. And then these guys run these events, and they run a stack of events. There's probably one every weekend of the year, sometimes multiple events per year. I think Europeans would have 5,000 competitors paying close to $200 to compete. So you can see there's a lot of money going in. I think they have started paying the athletes recently, maybe the #1 ranking over the course of the series. I think if you win a world championship, you don't get paid anything, but you get any IBJJF tournament you've ever entered, you get all the registration fees back, and you get to compete free for life after that. So for a company that makes an absolute fortune, it's really not a great avenue for a professional competitor. But again, with jiu-jitsu, you make most of your money off of your name. So I guess by winning the IBJJF, you are going to elevate your name. I guess you are somewhat being exploited, but from the growth of your name, you are going to build up a name to sell seminars, sell DVDs, maybe get some super fights that will actually pay you.
Well, were they the reason that I remember when Rio held the Olympics, they were allowed to add some sports and they wanted to add BJJ, didn't they? But I think that was the reason why, because they thought that it would take away from the competitions.
The way it works, I believe, with the Olympic Games is if you want a sport in the Olympics, now the Olympics oversees and owns that sport essentially. So the IBJJF definitely don't want to give up their control over the sport to an Olympic body. But they definitely should have put it in for the Brazilian Olympics. You could add in your own sport. They should have added in one of their biggest time sports.
Here's a question. How much do you think not having jiu-jitsu in the Olympics affects jiu-jitsu?
I guess just government funding, really. A lot of Olympic sports get government funding. That's the only thing we'd really miss out on.
Do you think it would affect the widespread practice of the sport?
Yeah. I mean, that's what they did with judo, right? They put judo in the Olympics and they kept changing the rules to make it more fan-friendly, and then it just became something completely different to what... I think judo back in the day used to be more like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is today.
It was, you had like Kosen judo and you had a lot more free-flowing Nawaza. Fun fact, but judo's after soccer is the most practiced sport in the world.
Oh, really?
Like the most widespread sport in the world. And like if you go like to African countries, you know, wherever they all do judo. They all do judo. How far, like, and it's one of the things like that I think is what holds jiu-jitsu back from being like a sport as widely spread as judo is if you're not going to, I don't know enough about the governing body and not, but if you're not going to have it in the Olympics and it's not going to be able to go through the governing bodies of all these separate nations, you're probably missing out on a lot of talent as well.
For sure, for sure. I guess the problem I see with judo is, although judo is so widely practiced, there's very few judo athletes making any money at all, right? That's why I guess I thank the Gracies for being shrewd businessmen back in the day, for putting a value. Like, people are willing to pay large amounts of money to do jiu-jitsu, but you couldn't convince the average consumer to pay. They don't even want to pay for judo. I guess judo.
They don't.
Government.
Same as wrestling, boxing. People don't want to pay more than $10 a week at the PCYC.
Exactly, yeah. But for some reason, like in our gym charges $54 a week to train. And that's, people don't even blink at that. But I get, if it was only judo, you might be like, oh, no way.
What's it like? When did you jump up financially making a living? Like after those 2 wins?
After those 2 wins, yeah. Previous to that was just...
drastic changes?
Yeah, drastic. I think at the time, I was probably after rent on $150 a week, trying to make do out of that. I'd have to teach the morning classes, so I'd get up 5:30 every day. I'd teach the 6:30 to 7:30 jiu-jitsu class. I'd try and fill the day with privates, and then I'd have to teach sometimes 2 extra classes at night, sometimes far away from where I lived. So I wasn't getting much sleep at all, just filling the day with private lessons. But then after that, it was a lot easier. Sponsorship came after that. Seminars were a lot easier to get.
And so what's a typical day for you now?
Day for me now? I mean, I don't even have a typical day anymore, really, spending so much time on the road. So like, I mean, typical day in Melbourne would be probably just train twice a day, kick back, do absolutely nothing else, order Uber Eats.
So what happens? You get up at what time?
Nowadays, probably get up at like 7, 8 a.m. I think we train at 10:30, and then I'll try and fit in another training session throughout the day at any other point, maybe do some weightlifting as well. Usually in bed pretty early.
And when you have, and then you might have that for how long until you have to go on the road for seminars? Like how does that work?
I would say I've been home for 3 months out of the last maybe 15 months. The worst part's paying rent for a house you're not in.
This is point 2. We're calling an Octopus Guard. Across the board, I don't want you to think of it as a guard. It's not a guard, it's not a closed guard, it's not a half guard. It is a position that we are moving at all times. We're hitting tipping points, tilting points, we're making them chase us and onto us, shoot for submissions and pins that aren't really there. So again, although we're calling it Octopus Guard 2.0, try not to think of it as a guard, think of it as an ongoing scramble. That is a problem that is hard for them to solve, and we're going to have sort of answers for all the options and all the risks we take along the way.